Today, we're diving into the blueprint for leadership in an industry where the stakes are, well, literally sky high. We're talking about aerospace manufacturing, and we're going to explore the systems that keep us all safe when we're flying at 30,000 feet.
So let's just kick things off with a huge question. How do you lead a team when just one mistake could be catastrophic? I mean, this isn't some kind of thought experiment. In the world of aerospace, a little lapse in quality isn't just a product defect, it's a potential disaster. And that kind of pressure, it changes absolutely everything about how you manage people.
All right, so here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with why this environment is so high stakes. Then we'll get into the actual leadership blueprint the industry uses. From there, we'll break down the 3 core pillars that make it all work: visible commitment, a guiding policy, and crystal clear roles. And finally, we'll see how it all locks together to build an unshakable foundation of safety.
Okay, so when failure just isn't an option, everything, and I mean everything, comes down to leadership. In this industry, the entire quality management system, the QMS, it lives or dies based on the people at the top. It's just not enough to have good processes written down in a binder somewhere. No, success demands leadership that is visible, structured, and totally accountable for driving a culture of safety and compliance.
So, how do they actually pull this off? Well, the answer is in a very specific industry standard, AS 9100D. We're going to zero in on Clause 5, which is all about leadership. You can think of it as the operating system for management in these high-stakes environments. And to see how it works in the real world, we'll be looking at a case study from our source material about a company they call Advanced Aero Parts Manufacturing, or AAM. So what exactly is Clause 5? Well, let me tell you. It's not a list of vague suggestions or motivational quotes. It is a formal, required governance structure. It's the framework that takes these big ideas like quality and safety and turns them into a concrete, auditable system that every single leader has to follow, period. And this powerful framework, it's really built on 3 core pillars. First, leaders have to show tangible, measurable commitment. Second, you've got to establish a rock-solid quality policy. And third, everyone's roles and responsibilities must be defined so clearly that there's zero ambiguity. So, let's dig into that first pillar, commitment.
All right, Pillar 1, visible commitment. See, in aerospace, leadership isn't about inspiring speeches or just being a nice person. It's about data. It's about measurable action. Commitment here has to be seen, it has to be tracked, and it has to be proven.
Now check this out. This is how a company like AAM makes commitment tangible. They use a leadership dashboard with hard metrics. They're tracking things like product conformity. Did we build it exactly right? And maybe even more important, escapes. Did anything defective accidentally leave the building? They're watching on-time delivery, customer satisfaction scores, audit results. This isn't just busy work. It's about holding leadership's feet to the fire for actual results.
But it's not just about the dashboards and the numbers. Visible commitment is also about actively building the right culture. The source material couldn't be clearer on this. Promoting quality, product safety, and ethical behavior isn't just a nice-to-have. It's a non-negotiable principle. That means leaders are expected to be on the shop floor, getting their hands dirty, and championing these values day in and day out. So that commitment provides the engine, right? But what provides the direction? Well, that brings us to Pillar 2, the guiding policy. If commitment is the why, the policy is the what. A good way to think about it is like the company's constitution for quality. And this is not some generic mission statement you could find anywhere. Just listen to this direct quote from AAM's policy. Notice how specific the language is. Safe, compliant, high quality, meeting airworthiness requirements. These aren't just fluffy words. They are formal, declared commitments that the entire organization is legally and ethically bound to uphold. So here's the magic trick, really. How does a high-level policy like that actually make a difference on the factory floor? Well, it happens through this really deliberate cascade you see here. The overall company strategy informs the policy. That policy then gets broken down into specific, measurable objectives. And finally, those objectives are tracked with key performance indicators, or KPIs. And this table just brilliantly illustrates that process. A vague commitment like operational excellence isn't left up to interpretation. No way! It's tied directly to a KPI, in this case, first pass yield, with a hard target, 98% or better. Delivery performance means hitting 95% on-time delivery. This is exactly how a big-picture policy becomes an enforceable, everyday reality. And that brings us to our third and final pillar, clear roles. Because in an environment this critical, any confusion about who is responsible for what, that's a massive risk. In the world of aerospace, you have to understand that clarity is safety.
The system defines two very different but equally important leadership roles. On one side, you've got top management. They're on the hook for the big picture, the strategy, the governance. But then you have this other, very specific role called the management representative, or MR. This person is the day-to-day guardian of the quality system. And here's the kicker. They have the authority to stop shipments if they even think there's a safety risk. Just imagine that for a second. One person with the power to halt the entire production line. That's what real accountability looks like.
Now, this accountability doesn't just stop at the top. The source shows us that AAM assigns a process owner to every single critical process, from design to production to purchasing. And each of these owners is fully accountable for their process's objectives, its KPIs, the risks that come with it, and for driving improvements. It's about distributing that ownership and expertise through the whole organization.
Okay, so let's tie this all together now. These three pillars, they don't just exist in separate silos. They reinforce each other to create something incredibly powerful, a genuine culture of accountability. Really, here's the formula at the heart of it all. When you combine the tangible actions of visible commitment with the clear direction of a guiding policy and the laser focus of clear roles, what you get is a culture where accountability is just built into the DNA of the system. It's not about pointing fingers after something goes wrong. It's about engineering failure out of the process right from the very start. So this is the blueprint for leadership when failure is simply not an option. It's rigorous, it's structured, and most importantly, it works. So the final question I'll leave you with is this. What could your field, your team, or even just your own work learn from this kind of relentless focus on accountability?